Hello, welcome back to my garden here in Denmark. It's the 24th of July and this garden is located in a zone 7 equivalent. As you can see, the garden is looking quite lush right now. The drought that we had here is finally over. Was broken, I think, a month ago, and we've had quite a lot of rain since. I wanted to show you the garden earlier on the month, but unfortunately, first I was at a festival and then I got sick. So and then I was behind with every project that I had planned. So I am finally able to get back to you here on YouTube. So what is in this garden? Hydrangea pinaculata will or is just at the beginning of its flowering season. That is a beautiful plant right there. I actually moved this plant. It was there wasn't any grass here a couple of years ago, and it was moved from right here. And back then it was also quite tall, so you can actually move these, even though they are mature plants. You can move them. I did cut it a little bit back in order to do that though. And I don't know if that's required or not. A new purchase this year is this monarda in here. I purchased that in spring as rather small plants, and I think I purchased 9 really small plants at a fifth of the cost what I would have to pay for a large one. So not as expensive as it sounds, right? But they've come true. This is, I tried to research it online because I've had issues with monardas in the past due to powdery mildew, but this one should have a good resistance to powdery mildew. But let's see how it goes. But at least I cannot see any powdery mildew on it yet. And located next to another hydrangea pinaculata. That one was planted, I think it was last year, so that one still has a lot of growing to do. Located next to a rose called, I think it's called Emily Bronte, this one. And that is a beautiful rose that was planted bare root in November. And that is starting to look really good. I think this is its second flush of flowers. Also a daylily that is actually looking good. I've had issues with many of my daylilies due to the drought. Quite a lot of them lost the majority of their buds, and some of them, even when they open up, their flowers are damaged. But this one is looking really nice. And yeah, I know quite a lot of people dislike yellows in the garden, but I actually like yellows, but I use it sparingly because yellow will sort of pop at you, right? But I really like at least some yellow, and this daylily only flowers here in July. This one, oh, it's called short and sassy. Oh, it's a helenium. It was helenium that I couldn't remember. Helenium short and sassy. Unfortunately, quite a lot of the short and sassy plants died on me, but I did not treat those well last year. I had issues where to plant them. In the beginning, I had them in front of another helenium called, I think it's called, is it Moorheim's Beauty? And as you can see, it just looks too much like short and sassy, only it's a lot taller here. And the issue was that these two plants, when looking that similar, it just made short and sassy look like, well, not short and sassy, but too short and sassy, right? So I moved it, and first I moved it to another location, and then I moved it here, and it was dry while I did it, so no wonder that it has had some issues, but it is looking, at least the plants that survived are actually looking rather good. I lost none extra in the drought, so my guess is that they'll be just fine. I could actually supplement up and buy a few more. Another daylily. This one has had massive issues though, quite a lot of buds lost in the drought. I should have watered them. But yeah, located next to daylily, and this daylily, oh, it is actually quite beautiful. Let me see if I can catch that. That is entwined in the vine. That is a beautiful daylily. Unfortunately, that flower was okay, but as you can see, some of the other flowers, and again, it's that drought we had while the buds developed. They have not developed fully. As you can also see, as I mentioned in my other video from June, I really like geranium roseanne. And it's basically geranium roseanne that is keeping all of my, my background alive here. When you look around in this garden, you'll notice it's just small blue flowers everywhere, pretty much everywhere where I need some filler plants. I almost always go for geranium roseanne, and I combine it a little bit with another geranium that's called Anne Folkart that will actually send its stems on quite a long run. See if I can find one. No, I can't. But I think this one is in fact geranium Anne Folkart, or is that one Anne Thompson? They're hard to differentiate. Anne Thompson will form a small mound, while Anne Folkart will send out these long stems instead, with flowers running along them, and they can be a little bit hard to differentiate when you only just planted them. I think this one might be Anne Thompson due to the size of the leaves. Over here we have a definite example of Anne Thompson instead of, of Anne Folkart. You can see, right? That one will just form these really long stems, and they won't strangle anything. They'll just run along and sort of weave themselves into other plants. And I really like that behavior, because otherwise, in a couple of years, with the amount of geranium roseannes that I have here, everything will turn to a monotonous sea of blue. Not that that is a bad thing as such, but I like it when I like this other color that can sort of pop up in the middle of it. Also, plants that I have quite a few of is Thalictrum. Oh, I don't know what that's called. I don't know the English name for that, but Thalictrum, right? And these are really nice plants. I actually purchased this one. I expected it. I actually purchased that one. Was supposed to be purple, but it's turning out white. And the white ones, they have a little bit of a brighter leaf as well. And I do wonder what plant did they actually end up sending me, right? But anyhow, at least it is a Thalictrum. And I have quite a lot of Thalictrums here. I also have the purple ones. I am not sure which varieties I have. I think I have quite a few ones. It's sort of, I have a mix of sterile varieties and varieties that will set seed. In the beginning, I was quite worried about the seedlings, but not a lot of seedlings have popped up, so I'm not afraid of that anymore. I planted in a few that would seed around, and basically they didn't. So not a problem here. And I'm on quite a heavy clay, and I plant very densely, so I guess that might impact it. Again, a Thalictrum that has fallen over. In here, as you can see, I planted a hydrangea in there. called, oh, are they called, oh, I can't remember, but it's in a bit of a special family that needs shade. So quite the opposite of the pinaculatas, right? And another hydrangea right there. If you followed my channel last year, you'll know I have issues with these normal hydrangeas, as they will always freeze to the ground and won't bloom. This one, however, is actually supposed to be able to bloom. The one here in front that has no blooms on it should actually be able to bloom. It's called All Summer Long. It's a Walter's Garden specimen, but so far no blooms. But I should add in that that one was planted last year, and as you know, we also had that drought, so that might have impacted it as well. So I'm not gonna judge that one based on 1 year. I'm definitely gonna wait another year. Oh, and another thing that I am trying to achieve is I am trying to add some height in there, because the issue is, of course, that currently it's higher in the front than it is at that one position in the back. So I will modify that a little bit. Oh, and the alliums that I mentioned on the last tour, I've moved them. I have now spread them out over the new border over here. Yeah, it's hard to believe that that is a new border, but that is a border that I established last year. Some of the plants that I moved, though, were well established already. But yeah, a border will just, perennials will really pay you back right away, right? Oh, that is actually a beauty as well. No idea what that one is called. Another really good plant is this one. It's Walker Slow, and not so low depending on the quality of your soil. So it's actually a rather tall plant, but again, I really like it. And the quality that I really like in it is that it doesn't seed around. It's a sterile plant. And Agastache, is that how it's pronounced? Not sure. As you can see, the bees really like this one. I've not seen many butterflies yet this year. I think they've had a really hard year. We had a really cold spring where they sort of came out, and then there was a lot of rain, and then there was this drought right after that. So I think they might have suffered quite a lot. They of course depend on various plants where their larvae can sort of survive, right? Moving along. Look at that. That is eye-catching, right? Pinaculata limelight. That is a beautiful plant, right? Next to my water feature. And I had some issues with this water feature, and that was that it wasn't level after the winter that we had. So I actually leveled it out, and I've decided that this is where it's gonna stay. So I improved the, what would you call it? A foundation might be too much to say, but I digged some holes under it, and I digged in a lot of gravel and sand, and I compressed that quite a lot. And I think I went down to approximately 70 centimeters and supported it with quite a few stones as well. So hopefully that will be enough to keep it in place. It isn't that heavy, but let's see what happens if we get a rough winter. I keep it running. I don't keep it running, but I keep water in it during winter, because these barrels will not remain tight if you drain them. So instead I put a couple of heating elements in it, and then the birds get something to drink as well. Another daylily, again a daylily that lost quite a few buds due to that drought. Yeah, that drought has has cost me quite a lot, at least in daylilies. I don't think I've had any plants that actually died on me though. So in that way, it has not been that bad. Oh yeah, and we're just walking a little bit back, right? This is the border that I was talking about, that wasn't tall enough in the back, right? But look at that. Echinacea, it's Echinacea magnus. I had that one there last year as well. And also last year I had a couple of very small plants sitting in 2 other places in my borders, but this year I decided to just move them here to this spot, because in this spot they've always looked their best, and in the other spots it's sort of like I'm not good at dotting plants around. I wish I were, but I'm not that good at dotting plants around. It seems to work better for me when I just plant them en masse. Looking through that border, if you look at that, with the thalictrums in there, the echinacea, and we could just catch it, the Walker Slow in the foreground, and I have a phlox in there as well, and yeah, and of course geranium roseanne is featured heavily in this border as well. And when you look into that bit of a pit in there, I actually did plant in some geranium roseannes last year. They are beginning to add some height to it that's missing. Also the other plants in there should start to get taller as well as these newly established hydrangeas. So if everything pans out, it should be fixed in a year or two. It is a rather shady spot though, because this elder is there. I actually removed quite a few of its lower branches. They were just getting in the way, and hence you can now see the structure in there. I might actually just go in and clean that up a little bit. I gave it sort of a very rough cut, and I'll go in and prune that depending on how it looks. But it will fill in again, believe me. Rose, I think it's the first flush that is coming to an end on this rose. I cannot remember the name of it, but that's something that I can find. Oh, and a daylily, and here you can actually see what a drought can do, because this daylily has kept quite a few of its spots, and this spot over here looks rather good. That flower is not that bad, but this one over here, it's the same plant, and you can see that the flower is just not formed correctly. It should be a lot more red, and it's looking rather damaged. Some of the flowers on this one actually looked okay, while others look more damaged. And I think it depends upon the amount of water that it got when it set these flowers. And just to show you, last year I talked about I so wanted to get my fuchsia through the winter, and that's the fuchsia in there. That is looking good, right? It's looking so much better than last year. That's the important thing for me. If I can get this through winter, I think 1 or 2 more winters, then it's gonna be more winter hardy. I do cover this one up. I don't dig it up. It isn't in a container or anything. It's actually growing in my soil here. All in all, my mother created these plants for me originally. I think she created 5 for me, and this is the only survivor so far. So, but this one, I think it survived 2 or 3 winters now due to good coverage and perhaps stump luck. And also, I planted it on a mound, and I did that. You could say that why would you do that? Why not dig a hole, and then you would be able to cover it better and protect it better from winter. But I actually created a mound for it instead, because I don't think it was the cold as such that killed the other ones. I think it was a combination of wet and cold. And by having it on a little bit of a mound, I think it's like 10 centimeters or so it's not much of a mound, but having it on that sort of removes the wet, and hence I think it's better at surviving the cold, but I'll still keep it covered. Usually I don't like covering plants, but I really like that fuchsia, so I really want that one to survive. Let's move along. As you can see up here, quite a few more daylilies. Some of them with flowers that are not looking that great. But by now you know the story, right? That one though. Now that is a well-formed flower hanging at what I would call exactly the right height. That is a beautiful flower. In this border there's a project going on in here. What I'm trying to do is I want to establish Japanese anemones, and in fact I did dig them in, but I've sort of regretted it because Japanese anemones can spread like a wildfire. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But what I am gonna establish in there, and yeah, it's hard to see how large it actually is, how large that area is, but it is actually large enough to hold these 3 rings that I purchased. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put these in, sort of establish a raised beds of sort, and I'm gonna surround them by these by this plastic as well. It's something that's made to hold bamboo in, so hopefully it can contain these Japanese anemones. And also I know that Japanese anemones can go deeper than 70 centimeters. 70 centimeters, that is what this bamboo, what would you call it, barrier can support. But when you go down to approximately half a meter in here, it's heavy clay, not just on the little bit of a heavy clay, but sort of bluish clay that really smells bad. My guess is that they'll have a hard time if they go into that depth. But let's see. Japanese anemones are masters of escaping something like that, and of course you could say that they could seed around, but Japanese anemones don't seed that badly here in Denmark, especially when you are on sort of a clayish soil as I am, so they'll be easy to eradicate if that happens. So I'm more worried about the established plants, if they can break out, than I am of seedlings. Don't know if the camera does this one justice, because that one is not fully yellow. It actually has quite a lot of green in it. I think the camera shows it more as yellow. Don't know if you can see that it actually has a bit of green in it. Depends a little bit on the time of day as well, but I really like that one. Also, I'm not that afraid of yellows. Again, this is geranium and fall card spreading in there, or rather not spreading, because it doesn't seed around, at least not in. I've never seen a seedling of geranium and fall card. I'm not sure if it is sterile though, or if it's just the soil that I have here, but I've never seen one. Of course, geranium roseanne that you can also see in there is in fact sterile, so you'll never ever see a seedling of that. Let's just make a panorama right here. We are a little bit more than this video is already longer than I wanted it to be, but let's just carry on, right? Again, this daylily, it is actually supposed to look better, but it hasn't lost a lot of its buds. But yeah, it has. They've just suffered, all of them. Allium millennium, right there, and also Allium millennium over here. I know this Allium millennium is looking good over here, but I actually want to remove some of it. And why would I do that? I have this this rather nice looking pond here, right? And the pond is the main feature up in this corner right here. And if you look over here, I have a bench, right? And if we sit on this bench, notice the issue, right? So Allium millennium, it's just too tall. It has to be moved. I'm not gonna, of course not gonna eradicate that one, wouldn't dream of it, but I'm gonna move it to somewhere else, and I'll see if I can find a smaller plant to substitute it with, right? Because that's what we can't see. Actually, even though this isn't a lot of water, it is actually attracting frogs and newts. And just look at all those bumblebees in that millennium. Don't know if you can see them. There's actually quite a few in there. That is a pear. It's called olive of the north. At least that's what I've heard it being called, because it's a winter hardy pear, right? But the leaf sort of looks like olive leaves, grayish, right? But as you can see, and these pears, they're not poisonous, but you can't really eat them. They are much too small. You know, that is the size of them, right? So the size of olives. I think is it called a willow-leafed pear? That's probably more correct. I think it's in Danish that we call it the olive of the north. Directly translated, of course. And yeah, and we've almost come to an end. Look at that phlox. That is a phlox that I saved from the other side of the border. That's quite funny, right? It is doing so well here, and last year it looked as though it was dying. I think I purchased 5 or something like that, and I was able to salvage 3, and the rest were badly damaged. And well, you can always see if a plant is thriving, right? Because on the other side of the border it was just getting consumed by snails. Slugs and snails was taking care of it. And then I moved it and I cut it a little bit back, and then it shooted again, and then the snails weren't interested in it. And I think that's because suddenly it had healthy growth. It was tucked in here, and there it was doing so badly, and on the other side it's doing so well. Yeah, let's move a little bit along. Oh yeah, and I know I need to deadhead some of the plants. Jacob's ladder, the same one that I showed you in the last video. That has just been blooming on and on and on. It's called Hopleys or something like that. And I'll put the name on the screen. It's a sterile Jacob's ladder, so it isn't supposed to be spreading by seed. So far, I've of course not seen any seedlings, because this is the first year that I have it in flower. But if they send me the correct one, then I won't get any seedlings, luckily. So one thing that I dislike about Jacob's ladders, and I know some Jacob's ladders are not as bad as others are, but some of them can be a little bit more thuggish, right? Oh yeah. This daylily is one of the few. I've not seen any damage on that one. Not at all. And I actually think that it's because it was located next to this plant that was just taking a severe hit from the drought. So I watered it. You can see I was too late in watering that plant, and that is really a shame, because that normally it has flowers for such a long period, but luckily only one branch seemed to be heavily affected. The others are somewhat affected. The whole tree as such doesn't look very good right now. It's a Korean dogwood called Mr. Tomi, a rather expensive plant actually, so I'm really hoping that it will do well. And also I am actually hoping that this branch is still alive, so I'm not removing it until I know that it's dead. Luckily it's one of the lower branches, but let's see next year, right? Again, slightly damaged, but not very much damaged. That is a nice looking daylily right there. Oh, and you can actually see, I don't know if you could call this snail here invasive. It's actually a French one that was imported. I think it was in the 16th century or around that time, where our our royal family decided that they wanted to to dine on these snails. They are edible. I've never tried. I've never tried one to be honest. I'm not French, but they are edible, and you're actually allowed to. I think you're allowed to pick a bucketful or something like that in the wild if you intend to eat them. They are not considered invasive. Of course, you could say, but that's not a native snail. But still, they don't multiply that much, and I don't. I think it needs to multiply more. But I have actually quite a few here, and I think it's because I live close to a stream, and they are renowned for liking it when it's a little bit on the wet side. Yeah. And we are basically back where we started. All in all, I am quite pleased with how the garden is looking right now. I have some projects going on that still need to be completed. I am behind the schedule. Also, I need to cut the hedge, or what do you call it, trim the hedge. But that is a worry for another day. Quite a few roses that are just in between flowering, right? That one is coming with its second flush in, 14 days or so. Ooh, there's actually a daylily right here. Can we catch it? Sort of like daylilies, half of the time they present their flowers in the wrong direction, right? And there's another one in there, but that one, well, let's hope that it flowers in the right direction, or if it reblooms or something like. Oh yeah, I forgot actually. I actually have some, I always forget something, but I actually have some daylilies. This one was doing really poorly, right? But I've seen one flower on that one this year, and the rest of the buds fell off, and I'll give that one a slight chance. But look what's happening. This is actually a daylily. You can see right there, there's a bud coming right down there. There is a new stem with buds on the way, and right next to that one, there's a stem with buds on the way. And these three daylilies are from the same, divided those from the same plant. And that's called reblooming. Some daylilies are able to rebloom if they get enough water. And we've had so much water lately. So I think that, or rather I hope that it will hence produce more than one flower this year. Because daylilies, you know, the way they achieve a long flowering period is by just keep on repeating, right? And some daylilies are actually able to rebloom, some are not, but that would be a story for another day. Yeah, that was it. Remember to subscribe and to like the video. Yeah, bye bye.